Hello, my name is Ben,
And my name's Josh.
and welcome back to FPL Graduates. Welcome back to another video. The game weeks are now coming thick and fast, and we are loving it. Let's get straight into our teams for this game week.
Before we get started, over 79% of you aren't subscribed to the channel. What are you guys doing? Hit that subscribe button. It'll massively help us out. Taking a look at game week 22 briefly before we get into game week 23. I'm currently on 43 points, but it is a little bit better than that, as you'll see in a moment. Still got 3 to play tonight as we're recording this on Thursday night. I don't even know the day of the week at the minute. Areola, Bowen and Solanke. Overall, it was a pretty solid week. Saka returned. Jesus, obviously, with that 10-pointer, which was massive as a differential. Foden captain didn't really pay off. Obviously, he sort of was 1 point less than De Bruyne in the end, but him playing out on the wide right was just not as good as we potentially expected it to be. But the big thing was that Fabian Schär was coming off my bench for old Kyle Walker gate. What an absolute story that was in the community this week. Kyle Walker obviously benched. A few FPL managers knew about it before the deadline. But luckily for me, Fabian Schär comes on with a brace against Aston Villa. Loving life. What's your thoughts on the team this week, Ben? Do you reckon I'll be strong green arrow?
Yeah, I think you're just about to be on a green arrow this week with Schär's points to come off, and obviously a few players to play as well, probably more than the average manager. So you should be looking at a nice green arrow this week.
Awesome. So moving on into game week 23. Emi Martinez in goal should be a decent pick, hopefully. Every time I've started him recently, he's not performed. So, and every time I've benched him, he's usually come up with some points. But Sheffield United away, I think Sheffield United obviously scoring more goals than they was under their previous manager. So I don't necessarily think it's a lock. I also think Aston Villa are sort of struggling a bit defensively, given a few injuries like Pau Torres, for example, and Lucas Digne. In defence, we've got Fabian Schär. Hopefully, he can score a hat-trick this week instead of a brace against Luton at home. Walker, Brentford away. I'd expect him to return, to be honest. That was his first benching in the Premier League this season. So it was a bit of a shock, to be honest. Obviously, after the whole scandal in terms of him with the Sun and having an interview, that might have been a reason why Guardiola decided to drop him for the midweek. And then Pervis Estupiñán, who came away with a 0-pointer against Luton. I don't think many predicted Luton to score that many goals against Brighton, but they did not look good at all. I think he got subbed off at half-time as well, which is not ideal. Crystal Palace at home. Hopefully, Brighton can do a little bit better in that derby game. What's your thoughts on that defence, Ben?
Yeah, decent defence, to be fair. In terms of your sort of players that you're looking there, I'm thinking a couple of clean sheets at least in there, which sort of been relatively rare over the last few weeks, especially. Let's hope Brighton can sort of pick themselves back up after a poor away showing. They seem to be a lot better at home anyway. Let's hope Villa a little bit better away from home than they have been at home. Like at home, they've been fantastic. Away from home, not so much. But yeah, I think it's all pretty well set up for a decent week in terms of defensive points. Let's see if Kyle Walker goes straight back in. It could be sort of maybe one more game week of benching. Who knows? I just don't know with this one. So yeah, it looks decent all in all.
Awesome. And then onto the midfield. Bukayo Saka, obviously, sort of dripping through points at the moment. No hauls, but he's ticking along nicely. Liverpool at home, I think, is a solid fixture for him as well. Foden, Brentford away. Not as keen on him at the minute, especially with De Bruyne back. Getting moved out to the wide positions sort of really limits his goal threat, especially. So we have to wait and see with him, but I'll probably be keeping him, throughout the double in game week 25 just because of his value. And then Jared Bowen, United away. Depending on my transfers, he could be benched this week. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Cole Palmer with Wolves at home as well on the vice captaincy. What's your thoughts on Foden, Ben? Do you think that him moving out onto the wide right makes him not as good as an asset?
I think it makes him more sort of safe for expected minutes in that City team. And to be honest, Foden's always getting in good positions and the goals come from everywhere of Manchester City. And it could increase his assist potential and decreases sort of expected goal potential. But I think the XG potential of every City midfielder will go down because of a certain Erling Haaland coming back into the team regardless. So I do think he's still a decent option to go with. Yeah, I like even the Bowen against sort of the the sort of perceived more difficult fixture. I think it's a really nice fixture on paper for him as well. And then, yeah, overall, like Saka obviously coming through with a few points here and there. Palmer, I expect him to sort of, and Chelsea maybe to bounce back a little bit. They may even sort of struggle to score goals against this Wolves team as well. So let's see what happens there. But yeah, all in all, decent midfield there.
Awesome. And then moving on into the front three, Solanke at home to Forest. I think he'll be a keep for at least the next 3 to 4 game weeks just before the double, because Bournemouth fixtures are actually pretty good. And then they're going a bit of a sticky run, game week 25-26, I think. And then it turns better again where they go on a really nice run after that. So if you have Solanke, I wouldn't be opposed to not selling him if you can sort of fit the players that you want in your team around him. Gabriel Jesus probably going to be a definite sell this week for me. He's been okay. He obviously came off, or he's benched 1 week, but he has returned for me 3 weeks that I've owned him. So I can't be too mad. Obviously, he got that 10-pointer last week, which put the cherry on the cake, to be fair. Nice differential to own, but obviously forward spots in a minute are really, really hard to come by, and he's probably going to have to make way this week. And then Ollie Watkins currently on the captaincy with Sheffield United away. I think he is probably a decent captaincy option most weeks. He's been so consistent with his FPL returns. I know Aston Villa in general have sort of not slumped off, but decreased in terms of performance in the last few weeks. But they're still a solid side, and I think that 3-1 defeat to Newcastle will sort of give them a bit of a reality check as well. So they have to go get the job done away to Sheffield United. What's your thoughts on that front three, Ben? And where would you sort of improve on? Who would you bring in?
Yeah, the standout to get rid of is probably Jesus. And with a lot of managers, they've got a lot of strikers that it's difficult to sell. Your likes of Watkins, your Solankes, your Alvarez. So you've got a clear standout, which makes your decision that little bit easier on who to bring out. And yeah, the transfer sort of looks fairly simple on paper anyway of what you're going to do. So yeah, don't see any reason why you shouldn't sort of pull the trigger on that move potentially this week.
Yeah, 100%. And then on the bench, Areola away at United, probably will keep him there. I don't think that's a better fixture than Martinez is. Charlie Taylor, obviously, he's been out for the last, I think, 3 weeks with a shoulder injury. Wasn't on the bench against City. So I'd probably, I wouldn't expect him to play against Fulham, to be honest. And then that leaves Saliba as my only fit substitute at the moment, which is not the end of the world, to be honest, because you will know that he definitely plays, and I wouldn't expect Liverpool to go crazy against Arsenal in terms of the goals conceded. And then there's Mo Salah, of course, still sat on my bench. The obvious transfer is to bring in Erling Haaland. I'm not really made my mind up yet. Obviously, he came off the bench against Burnley. Didn't look great. He did look a bit rusty, but it is Erling Haaland, and I think he can kick into gear at any given moment. It would have to be for a -4, the Erling Haaland move. So it'd be probably Jesus and Salah to Haaland, and I'm looking at Anthony Gordon because Newcastle's fixture run is really, really good. The only issue with them is that they don't double, and because we haven't had any confirmation of a Liverpool double in game week 25, it's leaning me towards the Newcastle asset. Is there anyone in midfield, Ben, that you'd sort of look at £7 million-ish instead of Gordon?
Probably not, to be honest. And despite the decent fixtures of other teams and doubles and that sort of thing, few uncertainties there. And in terms of like who you're looking at for teams that are potentially doubling Liverpool, if they do, Jota is the potential one to go, but it's a lot of money to invest in that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be difficult to sort of fund those moves as well, especially with the balance of your squad at the moment. It's looking quite decent. So yeah, I think Gordon's probably the standout player there, potentially playing out of position up front as well, with Isak and Wilson not available at the moment either. So yeah, I see no reason why not to bring in Gordon. Okay, so moving on into my team, and as you can see, we started off with the decent fixtures for Newcastle. Again, we've got Dubravka in goal. I think, yeah, like Josh said, decent chance of a clean sheet this week, despite Luton sort of looking decent at home. I think away from home and playing at Newcastle is a little bit of a different story. Udogie against Everton away, he obviously got that goal last week for myself, which was very, very helpful in terms of rank. And yeah, it's going to be a difficult one, Everton away. I anticipate Spurs probably conceding again, but there is sort of obviously that attacking potential. Cons are in there as well for the same reasons that Josh Scott Martinez in. I think hopefully they can sort of improve defensively away from home compared to what they've done so far this season, and they bounce back as well from that Newcastle defeat. And the same can be said for Estepinian. A couple of decent home fixtures in there. Decent fixture run for Brighton as well, which is why I brought him in last week. So let's hopefully see some attacking returns from him as well. Josh, initial thoughts on that starting back four?
Yeah, it's a good back line. It's a lot of similar teams to me. I think the only difference is obviously a Dogi instead of I can't even remember my defender who I've got instead of him. But yeah, it's the only difference there. And obviously he got some massive attacking returns, and you know a lot of managers owning Porro came away with that 1 pointer. He comes away with a 10-pointer. It's a massive haul in regards to those assets in particular. So yeah, it looks really good for this week. Everton as well, although they're not conceding too many goals, they're not really scoring too many goals either. Sort of what you expect with a Sean Dyche team. So you know, I don't think the clean sheet's necessarily out of the question. I think you know, as a back four, you definitely take that this week.
Okay, so moving on into the midfield, and we have already got in or already own Josh's target for this week in Anthony Gordon. I really am quite tempted to put the armband on him this week, just because out of position, playing up top potentially at home against Luton, it seems almost too good to be true, doesn't it? So I'm very tempted by that. I'll probably make the decision a little bit closer to the deadline and maybe sort of look a bit more rationally over the next few sort of days on that. But very nice to sort of already own him, pretty differential, and lots of people will be looking at those double game week fixtures rather than Newcastle's great fixture run. Cole Palmer hoping for a little more from him this week. Chelsea potentially unlucky not to get a penalty against Liverpool, but obviously these ones are so debatable. And if the referee makes a decision on the pitch, I didn't really think they could overturn any of those that Chelsea were appealing for. So hopefully he gets a penalty this week. Foden, like I alluded to with Josh, I don't think it's a bad thing he played out on the right. He's going to get the minutes over the next few weeks. De Bruyne isn't going to play 90 every week. And, you know, he's sort of the next best sort of player in terms of creativity in that team. We've also got two Arsenal boys now. Saka, happy to keep him for now, but Odegaard potentially looking at transferring him out. The decision will probably be based off of whether we get information before the deadline on a Liverpool double game week. If we do, it'll probably be a simple switch of Odegaard to Jota. I think even Arsenal away for a fixture for Liverpool in the attacking form that they're in right now is not the worst thing in the world. But if we don't get any news before the deadline, it's almost sort of a case of not really sure what the best option is to go for in that situation. And I might just roll the transfer off the back of that. So Josh, getting your initial thoughts on the midfield and then the potential plan on if Liverpool do and don't get a double game week, is it worth doing that move or that role in each situation?
Yeah, definitely. If they get that double, Diogo Jota is one of those players that I can't quite afford with that Haaland move. So yeah, he's unbelievable at the moment. He's fantastic form. Every time he plays for Liverpool, he looks like he's going to score. So yeah, he's ridiculous. His goal rate as well in the Liverpool shirt is so high. So it's a no-brainer if they do double, but the chances of them doubling now is getting like slimmer and slimmer as the days go by. I think the Premier League came out, I think it was at the start of the season or maybe last season when they postponed a game and said that usually they won't change fixtures unless it's 4 weeks in away sort of thing. And it's already 3 weeks away, game week 25. So it looks increasingly unlikely. So whether that happens or not, we're not sure. If he does blank, or if he doesn't get the double for Jota, I still think Odegaard is a potential transfer out this week, just because the Liverpool at home fixture is not great. I think Arsenal in general going forwards, probably not as fruitful as they have been, especially last season when you could easily own a double up of Arsenal attack and come away with attacking returns pretty much every game. So yeah, for me, there's a lot of money there. And I'd maybe look to move that onto. Who to, though, is the other question, because you've got obviously only 2 City assets in your team. So potentially looking at if you can push that money up to De Bruyne or maybe take a chance on one of the cheaper guys.
And then up top, as Josh alluded to, a second City player, Erling Haaland, and Ollie Watkins up top. And yeah, in terms of the money in the bank, I've got enough at the moment to go all the way up from sort of Odegaard straight to Salah, I think. So there's plenty of money in the bank there. So yeah, the temptation there is potentially to go with De Bruyne. Obviously, it would sort of guarantee that I have free City for the double game week. Captaincy is on Haaland at the moment, but I think that could probably go. I could probably captain someone else there with a bit more minute security. Yes, he sort of had quite a few big chances, but he looked a little bit rusty, like Josh said. So we'll see what happens with that. I think I'm probably leaning more off captaining Haaland than on. So one of Gordon or Watkins could be a great shout for me this week. So yeah, that's the team. We'll go on to the bench as well. So on the bench, we've got Areola, who doesn't have a good a fixture as Dubravka at home to Luton. Gabriel, who despite getting loads of attacking returns in big games, I'm going to bench him for now. I sort of don't back a clean sheet for Arsenal with Liverpool's form. Ait Nouri as well could easily be bumped up to first on the bench just because, like I said, Chelsea sometimes struggle to score, and Ait Nouri sort of could come away with a clean sheet there after coming back from AFCON, and then Mubama as well. So yeah, that's the team. That's what it's looking like. In terms of sort of the options, it is Ødegaard that's probably going to go this week. It just depends really on who's available. Josh, what are your sort of thoughts on the overall team there?
Yeah, I think you're really well set up. Obviously, we're just pending on news, which is just going to make the decision a little bit easier. So yeah, I think in terms of the doubles and the blanks, you look fine. Obviously, I'm not sure what your chip strategy is going forwards, but I think you're pretty well set up at least for the next 5 weeks. And then potentially, if in game week 29, you can look towards free hitting if you do bring in De Bruyne, for example, because obviously Man City will definitely blank in 29. Okay, so that wraps up our game week 23 team selection video. The game weeks, as Ben said at the start, coming thick and fast. It's good times in FPL. Let us know what your rank is currently and what your target rank is by game week 38.
And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
later. Have a good game week, everyone.